What's going on, guys? This is the 3D Dynasty podcast on the SGPN Fantasy Football Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. And we're brought to you by our Patreon. Score exclusive perks and content available only to our patrons at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. Welcome in, welcome in. We are going to do a mock draft. Rookie season's over. It's last ditch effort to get those startups in. And we're going to talk about two different strategies. And for that, Brad's out of the 4 spot. I am out of the 9 spot. I'm doing 0 RB. And let me know if this was not, if I didn't jump too far before I pulled my parachute. 5 rounds, 24 running backs. And Brad did hero running back. How you doing today, Brad?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm glad to be back home. The last few episodes we recorded, there was some background noise, bullfrogs and crickets and some other stuff outside because I was out enjoying my vacation while talking football. But I'm glad to be back at home doing this with you, talking draft strategies. The one thing I do want to touch on, but before we do that, actually, you just came back from vacation too. How was your vacation?
Vacation was good, man, and you got a little bit of a country, a little bit of country twang. So having the crickets and the bullfrogs, it's just like Luke Bryan's song.
There we go. I like it.
And
I
so,
like it.
you're the Luke Bryan of fantasy football, and everybody, it's always great if this is your first time on and you like the show, please.
Hit that God button.
It really does help support us. Drop your comments. Let us know. I mean, it is redraft season. Football season is here. And so we really want to help you guys out. So any trade questions, anything. This is the Dynasty podcast. We also got the best ball with Andrew and Justin. We also got redraft and other Dynasty content, best ball content. We got IDP content, everything. And then you can check the mothership over there at Sports Gambling Podcast for all of your gambling needs. So we're gonna really try to get straight into this, but Brad, let's talk a little bit about what defines hero RB.
So it's just what it sounds like. You have one RB that kind of is the hero of your team. You spend that early draft pick to get a stud running back. Now, the one thing I do want to kind of preface before we really get into this is it is hard to go into a draft saying this is going to be my strategy. I'm going to go 0 RB. And then you see a situation that we'll talk about here later on in the 4th round for Dave, or I'm sorry, the 5th round for Dave saying, ooh, what do I do here? Because we like some value that fell, but we said we were going to do 0 RB. So therefore we're not going to take the value that drops. So just be a little careful when you get into your drafts, whether it be a dynasty startup or even a redraft league. You don't just go in with your mind set and mind made up on how you're going to execute the draft. You can go in with a plan, but be flexible and let the board kind of play to your strengths a little bit. So, but yeah, hero RB is that one high pick, high value running back that's going to get all the volume and be kind of the cornerstone of your entire team.
Yeah. And so someone that's, if you're a redraft in the redraft mindset, that it's really hard to convert to dynasty because you're seeing, these RB2s and RB3s and going, why are they going in the 9th round, 10th round, or not as valuable on the trade market? And it's like 27, 28-year-old running back that, it's going to be, could be out of the league in a year. And so they don't have the same value as a 28-year-old receiver. And so you have to really learn that. And it takes some patience. And, it might take you investing in a bunch of running backs that end up, getting injured, like, Todd Gurley's and things like that. And you're like, okay, never mind. I've changed my mind. And so I went 0 RB and I gave myself the rule of no running back in the first 5 rounds. Can go any other position other than running back in the first 5 rounds and see if I can come up with a team that I like. And, I'll say this, I did like my team. And, when it comes down to it, if you do a startup, even in July, this may not be the roster that I roll out week 1 because I'm a trade happy guy. And so I could make some trades. And at the end of the draft, I want to come out with a team that has the best assets. And as far as asset value, I feel like I got some young players. I got a few players a little older, but I feel like I got some young players with some good value, and that I could easily move on from some of these extra receivers or package a receiver and a running back and get a better running back if I wanted to, because of the value I was able to get.
Yep, I love it, and that's what you got to do. It's all about value in that startup. We did stay away from trades and that kind of thing, which is a big thing that you're going to be doing in your dynasty startup leagues, which might be a different topic for us later on. But that's another thing that kind of plays into your hand as hopefully a good thing to do, which is going to be trading back out of the first round and adding some assets in the long term that can really give you a team that can compete now as well as be have the longevity of what you would hope a dynasty squad does.
Yeah, and if you subscribe to our channel, we're going to be doing different strategies, and we'll definitely be doing some trades and some dynasty startup strategies about how to trade back, how to tier down, how to do the productive struggle route, all those other things. But let's get into the draft, Brad. After we talk about
the one, the only SGPN Patreon. So be sure to do your part in the war against corporate gambling and sign up for our SGP Patreon. There is a ton of exclusive content, contests, and merchandise just for our patrons. Plus, there is a monthly SGP Stories podcast and an ad-free, uncensored show that highlights the best stories from decades of being in the DGens. There's even a Discord channel just for our Patreons. So the Sports Gambling Podcast Patreon is a great way to score exclusive perks and support us here at SGPN. So go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. Again, that's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon.
All right. Well, let's talk about your team, Brad. Your first pick was Christian McCaffrey. Then you had T. Higgins, Devonta Smith, Justin Fields, DJ Moore. That's your first 5 picks. You got 1 running back, 3 receivers, and a quarterback, waiting on the tight end and waiting on that second running back. How do you feel about your start?
Yeah, I don't hate it. I'm going to group the first 6 rounds together, actually. So I'm going to add that 609 pick in there as well, because my overall goal was to get through those first 6 rounds and have my stud running back, grab 3 wide receivers, get my starting quarterback, and also get that tight end. And I was playing a little bit of a game thinking that Dallas Goedert was going to fall to me in the 6th, but we'll get to that here in a second. Because as you can see, I did not get that tight end through those first 6 rounds. So I did punt it just a couple more rounds. But you got that hero RB in Christian McCaffrey. When you're going to play the hero RB game, you've got to have a guy that not only runs the ball, but also catches the ball. You got to have both of those facets in the game. I'd struggle to turn around and say, hey, I want to use Kenneth Walker as my hero RB, even because the guy doesn't catch the ball. Do I really want to go with a guy like Najee Harris right now? Is he going to get the carries that we hope he does? Maybe, maybe not. But I wanted to go with the sure thing from that volume perspective with CMC. Then I wanted to look, again, we're in Dynasty. How do I make sure I have the age thing in my mind? So when I look at my wide receivers, I'm looking at T. Higgins, I'm looking at Devonta Smith, both guys who are on their first rookie contract and could be moving on to in T. Higgins' case, could be moving on to a team with where he may be the alpha and doesn't have to compete with the likes of Jamar Chase. But even if he doesn't, the other key thing to think about when you're drafting these young wide receivers are the stud quarterbacks throwing them the ball. And right now I targeted those stud quarterbacks in Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts. I wanted their targets, and that's why I went with the 2 guys that I did. Then I looked at the quarterback position. Hey, there's a little bit, there's some quarterbacks coming off the board in a 1 QB league, which is what we're mock drafting, a dynasty single quarterback league. Having that rushing upside does give you a little bit more of an advantage when you're looking at this type of scoring with the one quarterback starting. So I did want to go ahead and jump on Justin Fields there after the likes of Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are off the board. He's the last true rushing quarterback that we've seen, right? Anthony Richardson, definitely that guy, but do you want to take that risk as in a one quarterback league as your only guy? Maybe, maybe not. I'd rather not. Then I saw DJ Moore drop to me the number one for the quarterback that I just took. So that stacking gives you a little bit of a statistical advantage in certain cases. So I wanted to go ahead and try to do that. And then we already talked about the 6th round. I was hoping that I could get Dallas Goedert out of there because I saw 4 tight ends already off the board before this. We saw George Kittle go at the turn, the 5-6 turn, and then Goddard went 2 picks before me. So I punted a little bit and decided to go ahead and start to address the fact that I'm playing that hero. Now let's start to get some guys that just have a little bit of week-to-week value. And that's the other key for the hero running back is I want that one big-time guy, and then I want guys that no matter what the game script is or what week of the season it is, they're going to have some amount of value. They're going to have some amount of volume. And I think Zach Charbonnet is that guy, regardless of the health of Kenneth Walker. He's going to get some volume, and he's a guy that I can trust to give me somewhere between 5 to 12 points on average any given week, regardless of the touchdown.
Yeah, and so like just to recap a couple of the positions, running back, the top 12 running backs were Bijan Robinson, Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Breece Hall, Saquon Barkley just signed a new deal with the Giants. They can franchise tag him again, but it's a one-year deal to stay with the Giants, just a little bit extra money. Austin Eckler, he could be a free agent next year. Then you have Jahmyr Gibbs and Josh Jacobs, Ken Walker, Travis Etienne, Nick Chubb, Najee Harris, and Tony Pollard. And so that's our top 12 running backs. So all those slid off the board, and I was just gobbling up receivers. To Garrett Wilson at the 109. Got a little reaction out of Brad. What do you guys think? Should I have taken Jalen Waddle or Amon-Ra St. Brown or maybe someone like a Tyreek Hill or Stephon Diggs? I took Tyreek Hill the next round. Really thought about Travis Kelce there. And I thought, you know what? It's like, do you want to get Travis Kelce and Deebo Samuel, or do you want to get TJ Hawkinson and Tyreek Hill? And so I'm like, I can wait and see if I can get Andrews next round or Hawkinson or Pitts the next round. Would have been okay waiting another round and getting Goddard, but that's kind of where I'm at. I don't want to get past that mid-round tight end. I really want one of the top 3 or 4 guys. I just think it's a huge advantage to the position, and it's such a difficult position that and Hawkinson's young. So I took Garrett Wilson, Tyreek Hill, DK Metcalf. Feel like my receivers are pretty good, and TJ Hawkinson, pretty good. And then at that point, I really wanted to go running back here. And I probably, if I didn't give myself the rule and didn't have Brad telling me I'm not allowed, I would have taken J.K. Dobbins. But Brad said it was not allowed because I'm not allowed to have a bell cow running back. And so we really went with the 5-round rule. And so if J.K. Dobbins came back around, I was scooping him up. But he didn't. And then I got Rachaad White as my RB1. And in that grouping, really by the ADP, Pacheco, Cook, and Aaron Jones were actually all ahead of Rachaad White in ADP. So I jumped the gun on that one. And, I felt like I probably saw him in similar light to some of the guys later on. But I played the ADP game, took him now, hoping I can get the other guys later. So, Brad, let's talk about the next picks for you. You took Jahan Dotson in the 7th round, Antonio Gibson the 8th, Sam Laporta in the 9th, Tank Bigsby in the 10th, Cole Kmet in the 11th, Devin Singletary in the 12th, and let's talk about those 6 picks right there.
Yeah, for sure. So that Jahan Dotson pick was a tough one for me. I was looking at, okay, the hero RB strategy. Do I look at a guy like James Cook, who was the top RB on my list at this pick, or do I go with the likes of Jahan Dotson or Deontay Johnson? So those were the 3 big players that I was looking at, but I ultimately just feel like the upside of what a Jahan Dotson can bring to my dynasty squad in 2 to 3 years from now. And I think he's going to have a good year this year as well. But I think you see that offense change a little bit. You see him grow even more. And in that year year 3 for him, I think you see that jump. Whereas we don't know with James Cook, right? You could be concerned with another big running back coming in there and taking some of the work or whatnot. So I'm going to go with the upside and what I know is the talent of Jahan Dotson over James Cook there. And then Deontay Johnson, it was really just do you think it's Deontay Johnson or George Pickens? So instead of that, I'm just going to go with who I think, regardless of the status of Terry McLaurin, we saw what Jahan Dotson could do in the red zone, and that was a very valuable thing to me. So coming back around in the 8th round, now I was like, okay, I'm in the 8th round. The running back room is starting to dry up a little bit, and I was really between 3 guys, the Khalil Herbert, the Kendre Miller, and Antonio Gibson, who were actually the next 3 running backs taken off the board. I pretty quickly talked myself out of Khalil Herbert just because there's so much going on in that backfield between Deonta Foreman and between Roschon Johnson, the new rookie that they drafted out of Texas. What does that backfield look like next year? Khalil Herbert may not even be on the team because he's on the last year of his deal. So that one kind of got thrown to the wayside relatively quickly. Then it was, okay, Antonio Gibson or Kendre Miller. If you've listened to us before, you know I have a fondness for Antonio Gibson. He's got a path to touches no matter what right now. With Eric Bieniemy there, I'm hoping he can get a little bit more work because I definitely think he's the better athlete than Brian Robinson. Whereas Kendre Miller, when you look at that, there's 2 other running backs, very capable running backs, and Alvin Kamara and Jamal Williams there. So I wanted to hold off and go with the sure thing in volume in year 1 right now so that I can still have a competitive roster this year.
All right, we're going to check in with our sponsor for the show. This show is sponsored by Underdog Fantasy, and we're brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner, and Underdog Pick'em is a great way to get down on a ton of NFL player props and is available in a ton of markets. They actually have like a special bonus right now, and so if you go in there and you use promo code SGPN, you're going to get a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. Plus, there's plenty of opportunities to win an MLB daily contest. Best Ball Mania, you get a first place, gets $1 million. So just go to UnderdogFantasy.com, use promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. It's UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code SGPN. And so let's look at my next 6 picks here. And so I was able to get James Cook because Brad didn't take him. And I wanted to take David Montgomery. And so I was just thinking David Montgomery probably makes it back and James Cook doesn't. And I'm not an A-chain guy, which either one of those guys could be totally ruined by Dalvin Cook signing there before this is even posted. But so now that I have Rachaad White, I feel like I still need to go and scoop up some volume at running back. Feeling pretty secure about my tight end and my receivers, and it's a 1 quarterback format. So I didn't panic at the quarterback position, knowing I can just wait a little bit and get some other quarterbacks later. So I took James Cook, Dave Montgomery. James Cook obviously is one of the best offenses in football. I really like his usage down the stretch at the end of the year last year. Talk about explosive runner. This guy's an absolute playmaking machine. He gets the ball in his hands. He didn't get a lot of volume last year, but even with the volume he had, a lot of forced missed tackles, and he had an explosive run rate of 10 plus yards, as well as the his breakaway runs. Then David Montgomery goes into a situation that saw Jamal Williams get 17 touchdowns last year. Does he get 17 touchdowns? Probably not. 1,000 yards? That could happen. And he's looking at, somewhere between 200 and 250 carries. Yeah, I'll take that. And, behind a great offensive line, and he's a good running back. Then I took Dak Prescott, finally caved, took the quarterback, back to the receivers, got Elijah Moore and Jaden Reed. I think Elijah Moore is a breakout candidate this year, and I think Jaden Reed is probably the number 5, rookie receiver right now, coming off the board by most rankings and ADP. And he's someone that could do something this year. Do I expect him to be a top 24 receiver? No, but I think he could have definitely some games this year. And looking at Mike Clay's projections, he's got him at right around right around receiver 40. And in that wide receiver 3, territory, where he's got Reed as the second option in Green Bay and as the fifth best rookie receiver for fantasy this year. And then I got Chig Okonkwo as my second tight end. Really just looking at, again, at volume, at assets, at value. And, if I needed to move up and get a better running back, I could easily trade one of these receivers, Jaden Reed, Elijah Moore, or look at the tight end and say, hey, you need a tight end, your tight end got hurt, or your tight end's just not that good. Chig is someone that people are very hot on, even with the Hopkins signing. That's why I went with him.
Yeah, I love the Elijah Moore pick in the 10th. I just think that's a steal when you look at it in comparison to Amari Cooper, even 3 rounds later for a guy who's 6 years younger and on a pass first offense. I think it's a really solid pick later in, especially when you're looking at, after you took those wide receivers early on, you kind of had a 4 or 5 round stretch where you stayed away from the wide receiver position, and to get a guy who has a lot of hype coming in right now is a great asset. So, all right, so let's take a look at, we'll go just from 9 to 12 for me, just to wrap it up. After I took Antonio Gibson, you saw a little bit of a run on Pat Freiermuth and Darren Waller. I had to start to land some of the tight ends. So I looked at Sam Laporta, a guy who can do a little bit of everything for the Detroit Lions offense. And it really is going into a situation that has a good amount of vacated targets as well. And really nothing outside of Amon-Ra St. Brown right now. Now, granted, we know Jameson Williams is going to be coming back, but he's also a little bit of an unknown commodity in the NFL right now. He had one big catch last year, and outside of that, he just wasn't healthy enough to really play. So all the reports out of camp for Sam Laporta are really good, so I'm hoping that turns in. And then it was just, again, who are the running backs that I think can just give me a little bit of value from a week-to-week basis. So I took Tank Bigsby in the 10th round, running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars, a guy that I know is going to get some volume behind Travis Etienne. And then Devin Singletary in the 12th behind, he's not wow factor, but is a very serviceable running back in his days in Buffalo. And he's going to a situation where Dameon Pierce started to break down at the end of the year. So I kind of like the idea of being able to get him, in the later rounds, and again have some flex appeal for the running back position for me, since I was doing 0 RB. And then I wrapped up the tight end, the tight end position for me with Cole Kmet. I just think he's a big guy that it seems like Justin Fields has an affinity for. Now they did add DJ Moore and some other things there, but you're playing that late tight end game. So do you go with a Michael Mayer, who's not that super athlete, but is going to earn snaps early on because of his blocking capabilities and his all-around skill set? Or do you go with some of these later guys like Dalton Schultz and Greg Dulcich? And I felt like Cole Kmet was the better option out of them. And he's a super young guy.
Yeah, and so I like that, and being able to pick up Goff. You see where I didn't get a second quarterback. Really, probably should have taken one instead of taking some of those shots at the end there, where a second quarterback started to fall. I still could go with someone like a Derek Carr, Brock Purdy. There's still some options out there on the board for me, but I would have much rather Geno Smith or Jared Goff, or even going with a younger guy like a CJ Stroud, something like that. But Bryce Young, who went, similar value to Kyler Murray, who Kyler Murray is just a very good value right now in all your dynasty leagues. If you're a rebuilding team, or if it's a one quarterback, you stash him later on and then trade your other quarterback later.
Yep.
So for my guys, I took Jerome. I took Jerome Ford. Then I got Wan'Dale Robinson, Kareem Hunt, and Cedric Tillman. So really stacked up those Giants and Browns there at the end there, just for Homer's sake. Kareem Hunt, who knows where he ends up? It seems like maybe he's waiting for an injury to happen, or a spot to open up. There's a lot of landing spots, and one of the reasons I grabbed Kareem Hunt, and one of the reasons I said he's a target in my recent article, is just because news causes action. Brad and I are in a league together, and we saw 3 waiver wire pickups. All of them were in the news recently. James Robinson was in the news. Melvin Gordon was in the news with picked up, and somebody else. And then boom, next thing you know, they're trending on Sleeper and they're being picked up. And so Kareem Hunt, grab him as soon as he gets picked up. You can make the decision whether you need the depth, you can roll with him. If you don't, he's just an extra piece. And right now, if I put Kareem Hunt in the trade block, it's going to be crickets. But as soon as he signs with the Bills or the Browns or the Broncos or whoever, he's going to have some movement. And some teams are going to cause more movement than others. If he goes to one of these teams, like let's say Kareem Hunt went to the Raiders right now with the Josh Jacobs situation, probably trade him for a late second round pick or something like that. People would go a little crazy for it because they overreact to things. And I think he's still a good running back. I know last year was kind of a weird year for him, but Wan'Dale Robinson, this regime took a second round pick on him. He's kind of being faded on right now. And Cedric Tillman, he was my wide receiver 5 in this draft class, and getting him as my last pick, I think he could be, a future for this Browns. Mark Cooper's not going to play forever. And then they also, at some point, they are going to run a lot of 3 receiver sets. Elijah Moore, I think Cedric Tillman is going to be on the outside, and Donovan Peoples-Jones will, eventually be moved on, or he could just be that, speed guy, but Tillman really is possession receiver. I like in PPR formats. So, Brad, I mean, we're just about done. Any other teams or builds that stand out before your pick in the 1 through 3 spot?
The more I look at the first 2 teams, the more I'm glad I'm not picking at the beginning of the draft. The build is weird to me. I'm not a fan. I don't like the 23 picks in between or the 22 picks in between. It's tough to manage. So that's where you get into, okay, hey, if I'm picking at the end, 1 or 12, I'm going to try to find a trade partner somewhere on the other side to kind of mitigate that a little bit and start to trade down, add some assets, add some pieces. You can really dominate a startup draft with good in-draft trading, adding future firsts, adding pieces in the middle rounds, where the money picks are really in that rounds 3 to 5. So if you're willing to pass on that first round pick and you can add a 3rd and a 5th or something like that, that might be something to think about, because now you're in not only a competing type roster right off the bat, but you can also make sure that those assets that you're adding in the 3rd and 5th round are likely younger assets as well. So that would be the only thing for the early end of me. I'd be looking to try to find a trade partner somewhere in the middle to back end of the draft.
Yeah, and for me, like I look at the middle rounds. I like Team 6, and it's kind of a strategy that I typically would use, and more of a balanced lineup. You're looking at, you have AJ Brown, then you got Jahmyr Gibbs, then you got JSN, then you got Ramondre Stevenson. So you have 2 really locked and loaded running backs there. Honestly, they're 2 top 10 running backs this year, expected, especially in PPR formats. Then you get Michael Pittman there. So if JSN's got to wait a little bit, you got Pittman. Then you got Dallas Goedert, maybe Brad Mad. And so you got that good, strong tight end to go with these, good with the well-rounded team. And then you have Godwin and Evans. Don't really like the fact that you stacked AJ Brown and Goddard and then Godwin and Evans, but I like the players there. And then 2, I thought it was a good value where like this team would be very, very competitive. I think the draft kind of fell off the rails there after that pick. Yep. But up until there, I thought it was a good pick. I do want to clarify something earlier. You said Khalil Herbert's a free agent next year, free agent after 2024.
Is it 24?
Yeah, after 2024. But it is, to your point, it is a very muddled backfield to where Khalil Herbert, he's on all the promos and he's on all the banners and he's expected to be the starter. And that could happen. And we wouldn't be surprised if after the bye week, Rashawn Johnson's the starter. Deontay Foreman somehow is the best fantasy running back in that. And, you're buying the dip in the 9th round. I'm okay with it. But there's not a lot of sure things. Any thoughts about the last 3 teams?
I don't hate team number 12, to be honest. They get a stud quarterback. They've got likely a top 5 tight end if he can stay healthy in George Kittle. They've got youth at the running back position with Breece Hall. They've got youth at the wide receiver position with Drake London and Christian Watson. But they did a really good job adding some experience as well in Keenan Allen. And it just, you look at that, it's a pretty solid build. They've got youth, they've got some age to them and experience, and it's a team that if they don't make silly moves in season can really find themselves in quite contention. So I think Team 12 is probably my favorite out of those back 3 teams right now.
Yeah, and I like Team 11. You have Waddle and Amon-Ra St. Brown, 2 top 7, top 8 dynasty receivers, so a lot of asset value there. And then you have your running backs. That's a powerhouse running back squad. Yep. Harris, Henry, and Dobbins. And then back to the receivers with Ridley, Kirk, and Marquise Brown. Then you go in David Njoku, pretty solid tight end. Kyler Murray, he's going to probably sit out this year, or at least sit out the first half of the year. Michael Thomas, dart throw, upside pick in the 11th round. Damian Harris, could be the goal line back there. Then Kirk Cousins, take care of your Kyler Murray situation. You got Jerick McKinnon there, who could be a really sneaky pick. And then you got Michael Carter and Mike Gesicki. So I like that squad. I think they could be, like, if this were, like, who's the contenders this year, I think that's a very strong team for a contender. Looking at that receiver core, when they're rolling out, their starting lineup is going to be Kirk Cousins, Derrick Henry, Najee Harris, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jalen Waddle. Then they have in the flex, we'll give them a third receiver of Calvin Ridley and a flex of J.K. Dobbins. And then with Njoku, I mean, yeah, that's going to be a pretty dang good lineup week 1.
This is why the late QB strategy in 1 quarterback leagues is kind of the way to go, right? Because it just allows you to pile on that value early on, and you can get a consistently top 12 guy in Kirk Cousins to lead you the first year. And like, just because he's 34 years old or whatever, people are discounting him hugely right now. So you can figure that out later on. And again, in 1 quarterback leagues, those quarterbacks fall in your rookie drafts. So even if you're in the number 1, number 2 team in the league, you're likely to get a high level or high caliber quarterback in next year's rookie class to fill in if Kyler Murray for some reason falls off the cart. So
yeah, I mean, you look at trade value, like Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes are all first round picks. They're not going to have the same trade value in a 1 quarterback league as Jonathan Taylor, Garrett Wilson, Jalen Waddle, who went all in the same range. And so, like, you're already losing value by reaching on them that early, where, like, yeah, you're looking at, like, Kirk Cousins is probably, unfortunately worth, a little, maybe,
Rashad Penny,
Jamal Williams, like
maybe a couple rounds earlier.
Yeah, like he does, like, so you're getting Kirk Cousins, a starting every week starter instead of Zach Evans.
Yep.
I mean, it's just, yeah. And this is also another reason that we play Superflex, because it's just like, really, like, it, people say, well, it's not realistic. Well, getting a 6th round running back and a starting quarterback in the same pick range, that's not realistic either. So, hey, that's it, man. Any parting words before we get out of here?
No, I don't think so. Tune in for the next one. We're going to talk about a quarterback tight end kind of combination early, and then that heavy duty wide receiver build, heavy duty running back build. Sorry.
Well, let us know what you thought about the episode, and don't forget. And as always, good luck this season.
Cheers.